As Missouri's Attorney General, I happened to bring the lawsuit Missouri versus Biden, which is why I'm so familiar with your efforts. And I think that we would be remiss to not at every point out the people who were involved in this, who would trample individual rights in this country, their ability to speak their mind because they thought the government should decide what the truth was. And this country was founded on the principle that that's not the case, that individuals can make up their own minds. So hopefully we never go down this road again. But you ought to be ashamed of yourself for your role in this. I would note that a couple of witnesses has brought up some of the potential First Amendment concerns related to drones and monitoring activities. And Ms. Daskell mentioned specifically that she wanted to make sure she was ensuring people could engage in First Amendment protected activity. And it's this sort of line of question I'd like to pursue with you. Did you, in your time at DHS, co-chair the Biden administration's Disinformation Governance Board?
No, I was not the co-chair of the governance.
Did you write the charter?
In my time at DHS, I was the acting general counsel at DHS.
Well, I have a memo here from you with a couple things that we're going to get into, but you wrote the charter, correct?
I was, as I said, Senator, I was in a general counsel role, and in that role, everything came through.
Did you have a role in picking Nina Jankowicz to be the executive director of the Disinformation Governance Board?
I was not the hiring authority.
Did you have input before she became Mary Poppins? Were you aware that she was going to become the executive director of the Disinformation Governance Board?
I was aware, yes.
Okay. Did you support that?
I am not going to get into internal conversations.
Okay, well, we'll get into, how about some public documents here? Let's just get into the memo that you authored. On January 31st, 2022, you authored a memo to Secretary Mayorkas asking him to sign off on the charter that you authored. In that charter, there's a few things that you were trying to address, to dispel as relates to misinformation or disinformation relating to the origins and effects of COVID-19. Is your position that it would have been appropriate for the government to work with social media companies to censor points of view that maybe COVID-19 originated in China?
Senator, it's my view that it's not appropriate for the government to censor any points of view.
Literally, you were a part of the Disinformation Governance Board of the United States of America. My contention is the Orwellian name of Ministry of Truth was already taken, so the Disinformation Governance Board slid right in, and you were a big part of this. I mean, you wrote the charter. You'd also wanted to censor views and dispel disinformation about the efficacy of masks. Another conspiracy theory that the government thought it was their job to dispel. And so I find it kind of rich that you're here expressing concerns about First Amendment concerns about anything. A federal district court judge said this was the biggest affront to the First Amendment in the history of the United States of America, this censorship enterprise that the Biden administration engaged in that you were a big part of. I want to ask you also about, in that memo that you wrote, attached to the charter, there is a proposed time schedule with Twitter. For April 28th, 2022, you were going to meet with Twitter executives, including Yoel Roth, who by the head of site integrity, to discuss, it's noted that Nick and Yoel both know the Disinformation Governance Board Director Nina Jankowicz, and the purpose it was for them to become more involved with the Disinformation Governance Board analytic. Were you at that meeting?
I do not recall that meeting.
You don't recall? Well, it turns out that Twitter actually became very involved in your efforts, didn't they?
I was not engaged with Twitter on these efforts.
Okay. Well, they were engaged in helping dispel the Hunter Biden laptop as, quote unquote, a hack and leak, Russian hack and leak operation. which was cited, by the way, in the charter of things to address. COVID-19 conspiracy theories. I just think I don't have a lot of time, and we could do a whole hearing on this. But as Missouri's Attorney General, I happen to bring the lawsuit Missouri versus Biden, which is why I'm so familiar with your efforts. And I think that we would be remiss to not at every point out the people who were involved in this, who would trample individual rights in this country, their ability to speak their mind because they thought the government should decide what the truth was. And this country was founded on the principle that that's not the case, that individuals can make up their own minds. So hopefully we never go down this road again. But you ought to be ashamed of yourself for your role in this.